Hello everyone, it is I, Tiger, and we're going to talk about the best and worst episodes of Milo Murphy's Law Season 1. Milo Murphy's Law. Murphy's Law states that whatever can go wrong will go wrong, which that's why in the show, Milo, the main character, has extremely bad luck. But Murphy's Law only seemed to affect the male members of the Murphy family. His dad, his uncle, his grandpa all have extremely bad luck. His sister, on the other hand, doesn't. Usually episodes are focused around Milo, but sometimes there's a side plot that involves Cavendish and Dakota. Okay, so I'm not 100% sure that the season is over. I know they're going to have a crossover episode in April or something of this year, but I'm not sure if it's a season finale or not, or maybe it's supposed to be the first episode of season 2.
This entire season of Milo Murphy's Law, every episode, every little detail has built to this one moment.
That commercial really makes it sound like a season finale. I know that Best and Worst Episodes of is supposed to be a season or a complete show, and I'm not sure if there's going to be more episodes for season 1. So technically I'm breaking my own rules, but I already picked my favorite episode and my least favorite episode. And I'm not counting the crossover episode because it's a crossover episode. Also, not enough people talk about this show. That means I must take on the responsibility of informing people about the existence of this show. Anyways, if you like Phineas and Ferb, you're definitely going to like Milo Murphy's Law. Especially because it's created by the same people who made Phineas and Ferb. Not only that, just like in Phineas and Ferb, their side story steals the show. A lot of people would agree that they prefer the Perry the Platypus storyline over the main storyline. And just like in Milo Murphy's Law, Dakota and Cavendish steals the show. So, if you haven't watched the show, or you haven't watched all the episodes yet, if you don't like spoilers, shoo. If you don't really care or you're interested in the show or you already watched all the episodes, then welcome. I'll try not to spoil too many things, but it's kind of obvious that I'm going to spoil the episodes I'm reviewing, but I'll avoid spoiling any other episodes. Anyways, let's talk about what I consider the best episode of Milo Murphy's Law Season 1. Season 1, Episode 33, The Island of Lost Dakotas. This episode has two storylines, the Milo line and the time travel line. Obviously, the reason why I consider this to be the best episode of Season 1 is because of the time travel storyline. So I won't really be talking much about Milo's storyline. The main thing that happens in his storyline is him losing his shoes, and now he has to wear shoes with laces instead. And because of Murphy's Law, a bunch of stuff goes wrong. But this episode starts off with Cavendish and Dakota. They're talking about what they should eat. Cavendish wants corn dogs, so he crosses the road to get some, and this happens.
Wait. Here we go again.
What happened? Well, since this is Disney, they couldn't add blood. What I'm trying to say is he's dead. Yep, Cavendish just died. After watching this scene, I instantly knew I was going to like this episode. When Cavendish died, Dakota wasn't shocked. He even says, "Here we go again," which means this happens a lot. Since Cavendish is dead, Dakota goes back in time to save him. Because he saved him, now there's two Dakotas. Let me try to explain how time travel works in this show. It mainly works however the plot needs it to work, which kind of bugs me. I try to come up with my own solution to how time travel works in this show, but then there's an episode that counteracts my theory. My theory is, if you have something lead lying around you or on you, then changes to the time stream will not affect you. Why I think this is because of a scene in the episode World Without Milo.
I don't know. Is that a lead-lined stop sign?
Yeah.
Maybe it shielded your brain from time waves.
But then their boss, Mr. Block, doesn't know what happened to the future in the episode Missing Milo. In that episode, Cavendish says that the timeline healed around Mr. Block, and that's why he doesn't remember. If you were in charge of a time travel organization, wouldn't you have something lead-lined with you all the time? Whatever. Back to the review. Because I'm assuming that Dakota is wearing something lead-lined or he has something lead-lined on him, by saving Cavendish, the time stream did not heal around him, so now there's two Dakotas. Since he doesn't want Cavendish to know that he's breaking time travel regulations by saving his life, he sends the clone version of himself to an island. On his way there, he talks to an old lady about time travel and the fact that his partner died on the job. I'm sure he's not allowed to tell random people about time travel, but Dakota doesn't really care. He reveals that Cavendish dying on the job is something that happens often, really often. In fact, we get a montage of Cavendish dying over and over again, which I'm impressed. This is a kids show, and we just saw a character dying over and over again in several different ways as a joke. How did that get past the censors? He died in lava and we even see his skeleton. Now, I'm not a psychopath. At least, I'm pretty sure I'm not. I just like to see this in a cartoon show because I enjoy some dark humor, and it really impressed me that they were allowed to add this to a show that is targeted for children. Sure, there's no blood, but still, we see a character die several times on screen. Anyways, Dakota gets off the bus and goes towards the ship that's supposed to take him to the island. As he goes up to the ship, he meets Wander.
Who are you?
I'm the captain.
I mean the captain of the ship, yes. So, he gets off the boat, and then he gets onto a smaller boat, and now he's on the island. He sees other ships stranded on the island, and then he comes across a gate. Dakota sees other people wearing masks, but they end up kidnapping him, tying him to a wooden pole, and setting the hay that's around him on fire. Though, it just turns out to be a bunch of Dakotas. We get to see all the other Dakotas that were sent to this island. What they do on this island to keep themselves busy is to manufacture and export sodas, slip-on shoes, and other stuff. Which makes this storyline connect with Milo's storyline because he ordered slip-on shoes earlier in the episode that were made by them. Other than that, they tap into security cameras to see what Cavendish and themselves are doing, and they record it to watch it again later for fun. The end. This episode shows how much Dakota really cares about his friend. He would literally spend the rest of his life on an island to keep Cavendish alive. What makes this episode even better was that it was slightly foreshadowed in previous episodes.
If you're still alive, can we go home now?
Negative.
Oh!
Oh! Did you see that? That almost...
Yeah, you almost died. Come on.
I absolutely love it when a show foreshadows things. It makes it way more fun to rewatch previous episodes. But yeah, I would absolutely adore seeing a continuation of this plot or something, or at least this plot being referenced in a future episode. There is a high chance of it being talked about later on because this show often referenced things that happened in previous episodes. Even though this plot really impressed me, there's a different Dakota and Cavendish side plot episode that I don't like. Season 1, Episode 36, A Christmas Peril. There's a lot of problems I have with this episode. Again, I'm not gonna really talk about Milo's storyline. I will say that his grandparents are incredibly annoying.
We're late.
I get hungry, but now we're ready to go.
Carry.
You should be proud to be a Murphy, son. Do you know anyone else?
This is the first time we get to see them, and I don't really care if we never see them again. Milo's plotline is that he wants to get the Murphy family together for Christmas. And, of course, a bunch of things go wrong because of Murphy's Law. Cavendish and Dakota's storyline starts in the year 2195, where apparently Dakota is famous and Cavendish is sad that they're not friends anymore. Why are they still wearing those outfits? Yes, they are slightly different, and I could believe that Dakota would still be wearing something similar, but why Cavendish? They're wearing those outfits to try to blend in when they're time traveling.
Wait a moment. You get tuxedos?
Yes, and you get...
They look really old now. They still have their time machine, but I don't think they're going on missions anymore. So it turns out that years ago, in the year 2175, they got into an argument about an egg roll. After that fight, they stopped being friends. I refuse to believe that Cavendish can still be alive after all these years if he continued going on time-traveling missions without Dakota. Like, seriously, did you see how many times he died? There's no way he can still be alive. Unless Dakota is the reason why Cavendish always dies. Cavendish is sad that they're not friends anymore, so he decides to go back in time to stop the argument. Someone asks Dakota about his old partner, and that causes him to feel bad that they're not friends anymore, so he decides to do the same thing as Cavendish and go back in time to stop the fight. They both try to stop the argument on their own, but they fail over and over again.
Oh, an egg roll. I'd like that.
I called dibs.
When?
Right now, I'm calling dibs now.
Ah, I've had it with this.
You've had it. What about me? I've had it.
Seriously? They don't even look like they're friends in that scene. Dakota, this guy, is the same guy that did this.
I'm selfish. But I just saved You, the last corn dog. Here it is.
Well,
There
thank you.
go.
He seems so out of character in this episode. It makes it seem like even if they do stop this fight from happening, they'll just end up having another fight that ends their friendship later on. As they try to fix the past, they keep messing up. I get it. It's supposed to be funny that they keep messing up no matter what they do. But some of the ideas they come up with to stop the argument makes no sense. It just makes them look really stupid.
No roof means no argument.
How does no roof mean no argument? How does someone even come to that conclusion? After they try to stop the fight on their own, which doesn't work, they decide to work together to stop the argument. Even when they start working together, they can't seem to stop the argument from happening. How is the younger version of Dakota and Cavendish not reacting to what's happening around them? There's a bunch of dinosaurs running around, but they're more concentrated on arguing about the egg roll. If I was in that position, I'd be concerned about the fact that there's a bunch of dinosaurs running around. Whatever. They give up and decide to actually talk to their past selves. They tell them not to argue and that they're sorry, but then...
Egg rolls aren't more important to me than you are. I mean, a spring roll maybe, but...
Oh no, we're vanishing. The versions of us that aren't friends no longer exist.
If that was true, that means the episode of the Island of Lost Dakotas shouldn't exist. Using that logic, that means after Dakota saved Cavendish's life, he should have disappeared, because the timeline that Cavendish died doesn't exist anymore. So yeah, Milo got the Murphy family together for Christmas, and the time-traveling guys are friends again. Then we get to see what they look like in the future. They're still friends, and Dakota's still famous, but the main difference is Cavendish is now leeching off of Dakota's fame. The end. One thing I really like about this episode was this last scene around the end. Why do I like it so much? Because instead of Sarah eating with her family, she's watching Dr. Zone on TV. That is exactly something she would do. I love the small animation details in this show. But anyways, this episode isn't that bad. My main problem is that their future selves disappeared. I believe that once you've established a rule in the world you've created, you can't break it. This is a bit confusing since this show does a good job with consistency. So I'm not sure how this happened. If I were to try to fix this episode, first, I wouldn't really change Milo's storyline. It's fine the way it is. The only thing I would change is I would stop his grandparents talking over each other. It's not funny, it's just annoying. For Cavendish and Dakota's storyline, yeah, they still have that argument and now they're not friends anymore in the future. I would change Cavendish's outfit since he wouldn't be a time traveler anymore, which means he doesn't have a time machine to undo the past. To save their friendship, he breaks into the time-traveling facility, which he has to break a lot of rules to do that, and Cavendish does not like to break the rules. As for Dakota, the same guy brings up the question about his old partner, but unlike Cavendish, he still has his time machine even though he's not a time traveler anymore. He can go back in time to change the past, but he's rich and famous. By going back in time and saving their friendship, that means he wouldn't be famous in the future anymore. He sits down and has a snack while debating to himself whether or not their friendship is worth giving up the life he has now. Cavendish steals the time machine to go back in time to save their friendship. He wants to try his best to avoid being seen and getting in trouble by wearing good disguises. In the episode, he does wear disguises, but it's obvious that you can tell that it's him. In my fixed version of the episode, you wouldn't be able to tell that it's him. You only know that it's him because you see him putting on the disguise. The reason why I would have that is when rewatching the flashback of the argument that they're having, you can actually see Cavendish wearing his disguises in the background. Also, when following Cavendish, you see the other versions of him in the background, but you don't know it's him yet. Cavendish tries small things to stop the argument, but nothing works. He only changes small things because he doesn't want to change the future too much. As an example, he would switch the sign like he did in the episode, but instead of Dakota changing it back to normal, someone else informs the two where the buffet actually is. So, Cavendish goes back in time over and over again to try different things to stop the argument. After trying several times to change the past, he comes to the conclusion that he can't change the past, that the argument is meant to happen, and even if he tries, he can't stop it. He goes into his jacket and takes out a magazine with Dakota on the front of it. When he looks at the magazine, he realizes that Dakota is happier without him. By trying to change the past, he was acting selfish. Then we see Dakota, He's still debating whether or not he should change the past. He realizes that even though he's famous and rich, he's bored. He misses time traveling with Cavendish, and he even misses arguing with him. So he sighs and says,
He's Cavendish. What are you gonna do?
he uses the time machine to go back in time. He gets out of the time machine holding a bag, and that's when he runs into the older version of Cavendish. They're both surprised to see each other. Cavendish asks what he's doing there, and blah blah blah, they both apologize to each other. But Cavendish says that no matter what he does, they still have that argument. Then Dakota, still holding the bag that's moving, shows him how to do the job right. It turns out that he brought a dinosaur from the past, and he releases it into the party. The dinosaur runs around and causes a riot. Cavendish gets mad at Dakota for doing that because by doing that, they're breaking even more regulations. The dinosaur runs around and ends up eating the last egg roll before Dakota or Cavendish from the past can get to it, so that prevented the argument. Cavendish from the future is surprised that it actually worked, and he apologizes to Dakota for doubting him. So instead of their future selves disappearing, they try to make up for lost time. So yeah, happy ending or whatever, the end. I wouldn't show what ends up happening in the future like they did in the episode. I'd prefer to keep it unknown. Anyways, that's what I would have done to fix the episode. But yeah, that's just my opinion. Right now, Milo Murphy's Law only has one season out, and I hope that there's more to come. I don't hear that many people talking about this show, which we need to change that. The jokes are funny, Cavendish and Dakota easily steal the show, and I love the small animation details they add. I love animation, and I want to become an animator. So when I watch a cartoon show, I pay attention to the small details. Small things tend to bug me. Like in the first episode of the new DuckTales, you see the plate of sandwiches, and now you don't. Often, in Milo's Murphy's Law, they add small details that if you pay close attention, you'll notice them. Another thing that I love about this show is the banter between characters. It's kind of hard to explain what I mean, so I'm just gonna show you what I mean.
Okay, you take care now.
Don't tell him to take care.
I am just being nice.
I really like that. To me, I just find that hilarious. The animation in this show is great, but the CGI is pretty bad. It stands out way too much. I guess it's because it's cheaper and easier to animate it like that than to animate it in 2D. Other than that, this show is a must-watch if you love cartoons and you need something new to watch. I highly recommend it, especially because of time travel. Time travel is awesome.